The camera is a cheap Amcrest dome wired to a DVR in the laundromat's back office. It has been recording continuously since November 2023, when the owner, a 61-year-old Vietnamese immigrant named Tran Van Bui, installed it after a break-in. The lens covers roughly 40 feet of asphalt, a dumpster, and the rear door of the Civic where Elmer Rodriguez Salgado sits behind the wheel. The footage that will eventually leak to WGAL-TV runs 3 minutes and 41 seconds. The shooting happens at the 1-minute, 52-second mark. ICE Enforcement and Removal Operations, ERO, has been running what agents internally call Operation Keystone Sweep across central Pennsylvania since March. The surge is part of a national push authorized under the fiscal year 2026 supplemental appropriation, which allocated an additional $4.1 billion to interior enforcement in January. Harrisburg is a designated priority zone. The Dauphin County Prison houses a 340-bed ICE contract wing, and the field office at 2647 Sipes Avenue coordinates removals across 33 counties. Rodriguez Salgado is on the target list because of a 2019 conviction for aggravated assault in Reading. He served 22 months. He was released in 2021 with a final order of removal that never executed. For 5 years, he lived in a second-floor apartment above a bodega on South 13th Street, working landscaping jobs paid in cash, driving without a license. On the morning of April 14th, agents believe he is armed. They are wrong about that. They are also wrong about several other things. The operation is led by Supervisory Deportation Officer Marcus Halloran, 44, a 16-year veteran who transferred to the Philadelphia field office in 2023. Halloran ran 71 warrantless arrests in the previous 8 months. His body camera, standard issue for ERO since a January 2026 policy change, is clipped to his chest plate. It is switched off. That detail will matter later. The Civic pulls into the laundromat lot at 6:44 a.m. Rodriguez Salgado is meeting a coworker for a ride to a job site in Hershey. The coworker, a 29-year-old undocumented Guatemalan named Jorge Cami, is running late. Rodriguez Salgado is scrolling through his phone. The dome camera catches him yawning. The pre-operation briefing had happened 47 minutes earlier at the Wawa on Cameron Street. 12 agents, 4 Ford Explorers, a single printed target packet with Rodriguez Salgado's 2019 booking photo, his last known address, and a hand-annotated note in the margin. Possible firearm, informant tip unverified. The informant was a confidential source who had provided reliable information twice before and unreliable information 4 times. The tip had come in 11 days earlier and had not been corroborated by surveillance. Nobody at the briefing asked whether it should have been. The operation was greenlit at 6:14 a.m. by an assistant field office director who was not present at the scene and who would later tell investigators he assumed standard threat protocols had been followed. 3 of the 4 explorers converge on the Civic from the front and both flanks. The 4th blocks the alley exit. Halloran approaches the driver's side window, weapon drawn, badge extended. 2 other agents flank the passenger side. The remaining 6 form a loose perimeter. Standard vehicle takedown protocol, executed clean. Rodriguez Salgado's hands come off the phone. On the footage, you can see them rise toward the roof of the car, palms open, empty. What happens in the next 6 seconds is the reason this case exists. Agent Halloran shouts a command. The audio is not captured. The Amcrest dome records video only. Rodriguez Salgado's left hand drops out of frame, toward his lap or the center console. His right hand stays visible. He turns his head to look at Halloran. The Civic is in park. The engine is running. The reverse lights are not on. Halloran fires twice through the driver's window.
Both rounds strike Rodriguez Salgado in the upper chest. The Civic does not move. It sits there, engine idling, for another 44 seconds, while agents shout at each other and pull the driver's door open. Rodriguez Salgado is slumped against the shoulder belt. He is unarmed. His left hand, when finally visible on the footage, is holding a black Samsung Galaxy S21. He is pronounced dead at Penn State Health Milton S. Hershey Medical Center at 7:38 a.m. The initial ICE press release goes out at 2:15 p.m. that afternoon. It runs 4 paragraphs. The relevant sentence reads, "During the course of a targeted enforcement action, the subject attempted to flee in his vehicle and reached for what agents reasonably believed to be a weapon. Agents discharged their service weapons in defense of themselves and others present." Attempted to flee. Reached for a weapon. 2 claims. Both contradicted by the footage that Tran Van Buey does not yet know he has. Buey learns about the shooting on the local news that evening. He remembers the camera. He goes to his back office, pulls up the DVR, and watches the clip 3 times. Then he calls his nephew, a paralegal in Philadelphia. The nephew calls an attorney named Priya Ramanathan at the ACLU of Pennsylvania. By Wednesday morning, April 15th, the footage is on a hard drive on Ramanathan's desk. A cheap surveillance camera behind a laundromat, installed to deter a break-in, has just captured the only unedited record of a federal officer-involved shooting. Ramanathan makes a decision that will draw criticism from both directions. She does not immediately hand the footage to ICE's Office of Professional Responsibility. She does not turn it over to the Dauphin County District Attorney. She holds it for 72 hours while a forensic video analyst named David Ostrowski, based in Pittsburgh, authenticates the file, extracts metadata, and confirms the timestamp has not been altered. On Friday, April 17th at 9 a.m., the ACLU releases the video to WGAL-TV, WHTM-TV, and Penn Live simultaneously. By 11 a.m., it is on National Wire. By 3 p.m., it has been viewed 4.1 million times on X. The agency's 4-paragraph statement collapses in real time. There is no fleeing. The Civic is in park. There is no weapon in the hand. There is a phone. There is no reaching. The hand drops for less than 1 second and is holding the same object the entire time, an object visible in the driver's lap in the seconds before Halloran arrives at the window. The Department of Homeland Security's Office of Inspector General opens a formal investigation on Saturday, April 18th. ICE Acting Director Caleb Winters releases a revised statement Sunday evening. It uses the word regrettable 3 times. It does not use the word unarmed. The obvious question, the one that dominates cable news for the next 3 weeks, is why Marcus Halloran fired. The second question, close behind it, is why his body camera was switched off during a planned, pre-briefed vehicle takedown of a subject flagged as potentially armed. The answers are operational, and they are ugly. Halloran's body camera was not malfunctioning. Investigators recover it intact. The device was manually powered down at 6:31 a.m., 16 minutes before the operation began, while Halloran was still at the staging area, a Wawa parking lot 2 miles east on Cameron Street. 3 other agents on the operation also had their cameras off. 2 had them on. The internal explanation, which leaks to the Washington Post on May 3rd, is that ERO agents in the Philadelphia field office had been told informally by supervisors that body camera footage from warrantless arrests can complicate removal proceedings if immigration judges see aggressive tactics on video. Turning the cameras off is not policy, it is practice, and it is widespread. That is the controversial part of this story, and it needs to be said plainly.
The real problem in Harrisburg is not one supervisory officer with a bad trigger finger. It is an enforcement culture that treats documentation as a liability rather than a protection for the public and for the officers themselves. The system worked exactly as designed. That is the problem.
Halloran is placed on paid administrative leave on April 15th. His salary, $128,400 a year plus locality pay, continues throughout the investigation. The Dauphin County District Attorney, a Republican named Francis Shadow, who has held the office since 2018, impanels an investigating grand jury on May 6th. State charges against federal officers are rare and legally complicated.
Federal officers acting within the scope of their duties enjoy supremacy clause immunity from state prosecution, a doctrine most recently reaffirmed in the 2022 case, Idaho versus Horton. Shadow knows this. He impanels the grand jury anyway. Rodriguez Salgado's family, a wife, Yesenia, and 2 U.S. citizen daughters, ages 9 and 6, files a Federal Tort Claims Act notice on April 30th, seeking $15 million in damages. Their attorney is a Philadelphia civil rights lawyer named Andrew Bake, who previously won a $6.2 million settlement against Customs and Border Protection in 2023. The obstacle for Bake is not liability. The footage is the footage. The obstacle is the Federal Tort Claims Act's discretionary function exception, which shields federal employees from suit when their actions involve policy-level judgment. Bake's argument, filed in the U.S. District Court for the Middle District of Pennsylvania on June 12th, is that firing on an unarmed man holding a phone is not a discretionary function. It is a violation of clearly established Fourth Amendment law under Tennessee versus Garner. The government's response, filed July 8th, argues that Halloran made a split-second threat assessment under stress and that such assessments are precisely what qualified immunity is designed to protect. Both things can be true. That is what makes the case difficult. While the litigation moves forward, the operational fallout inside ICE is immediate and visible. On April 22nd, Acting Director Winters issues a directive mandating that all ERO body cameras be activated at the start of every pre-planned enforcement action, with disciplinary consequences for non-compliance. The directive is called Policy 11072.3. Agents in the Philadelphia field office begin calling it the Halloran Rule. Compliance jumps in the first month. By June, according to internal audit data obtained by ProPublica, activation rates during warrantless arrests in ERO Philadelphia rise from 61% to 94%. The number that does not change is the number of enforcement actions. Operation Keystone Sweep continues. Between April 14th and June 30th, ICE arrests 1,847 people in central Pennsylvania. Of those, 1,203 have no criminal convictions beyond immigration violations. Dauphin County Prison's 340-bed ICE wing runs at 97% capacity through the entire second quarter. The Harrisburg shooting does not slow the surge. If anything, it accelerates it. You might wonder why ICE would push harder in the middle of a federal investigation into one of its own officers. The answer is budgetary. The $4.1 billion supplemental included performance benchmarks, quarterly arrest targets tied to future funding. Falling behind in Q2 would risk the Q3 disbursement. The field office had numbers to hit. The shooting, however damaging politically, did not change the math. You might also wonder about Jorge Camey, the co-worker who was late to the pickup that morning. He watched the shooting from a block away, standing at the corner of Dairy and 17th, waiting to cross. He turned around and walked home. He did not go to work for 4 days. On April 19th, he presented himself at the ACLU's Harrisburg office and gave a sworn statement. He has since been granted a U visa as a witness to a violent crime. He is the only known undocumented immigrant in central Pennsylvania to receive federal immigration relief as a direct result of the shooting that killed his ride to work. That is what closure looks like in a story with none. The third question, the one nobody at the agency wants to answer. How many other operations have looked like this one, without a laundromat camera to record them? DHSOIG data released under FOIA in September 2026 shows that between January 2023 and April 2026, ERO officers discharged firearms in 47 enforcement actions nationwide. Of those, 19 resulted in fatalities. In 31 of the 47 incidents, body cameras were either off, obstructed, or missing. In 8 cases, no independent video existed at all.
The pattern inside those numbers is worth sitting with. In the 16 cases where body cameras were on and functioning, ERO's Use of Force Review Board found the shooting justified 14 times and unjustified twice. In the 31 cases where cameras were off, obstructed, or missing, the same review board found the shooting justified 30 times and unjustified once. Same agency, same standard. Wildly different outcomes depending entirely on whether anyone could see what happened. That is not a coincidence. That is what happens when a system grades itself on the evidence it chooses to preserve. Tran Van Buey's dome camera was not supposed to see any of this. It was supposed to catch someone breaking into a laundromat. Instead, it caught a federal officer firing twice through a car window at a man holding a phone. The grand jury in Dauphin County declines to indict Marcus Halloran on September 18, 2026. Shardo issues a public statement acknowledging the Supremacy Clause obstacle and calling on the Department of Justice to pursue federal civil rights charges under 18 U.S.C. Section 242. As of the current date, DOJ has not announced a charging decision. Halloran remains on paid administrative leave. His body camera, the one that was off, is in an evidence locker in Washington. His service weapon, a Glock 47, was returned to him on August 3rd. The Rodriguez-Salgado family's civil suit is scheduled for a motion to dismiss hearing on November 12, 2026, before U.S. District Judge Jennifer Wilson, an Obama appointee. Bake estimates the case will take 3 years to resolve. Yesenia Rodriguez-Salgado has moved with her daughters to Redding, where her sister lives. She works 2 shifts at a poultry processing plant. She has a pending U visa application of her own. The younger daughter, the 6-year-old, stopped speaking for 11 days after the funeral. A school counselor in Redding eventually got her talking again through drawing exercises. Yesenia keeps one of the drawings on the refrigerator. It shows a car and a man in the driver's seat and a phone floating above the roof like a small black balloon. There is no gun in the picture. There has never been a gun in the picture. Yesenia has told Bake she does not want the drawing entered into evidence. Bake has agreed. The apartment above the bodega on South 13th Street sat empty for 2 months. In July, a new family moved in, a Dominican couple with a teenage son. They do not know who lived there before them. The landlord did not tell them. The laundromat on Derry Street is still open. Tran Van Buey replaced the DVR in June after federal agents subpoenaed the original. The new camera is a higher resolution model, 4K, with audio. Buey paid $340 for it out of pocket. He has not been reimbursed. Buey has been interviewed twice, once by a reporter from the Philadelphia Inquirer, once by a documentary crew from Germany. He declined both times to appear on camera. He told the Inquirer, through his nephew translating, that he did not want to be known as the man who filmed a killing. He wanted to be known as the man who ran a laundromat. The Inquirer printed the quote anyway.
Business at the laundromat has not changed.
The regulars still come on Saturday mornings with their bags of clothes and their rolls of quarters, and Bowie still fixes the machines himself when they jam. 6:47 a.m. on a Tuesday in April. A cheap camera behind a laundromat. 2 shots through a driver's window. A phone that was mistaken for a gun, or was never mistaken for anything at all, because the footage cannot show what an officer believed, only what he did. Marcus Halloran fired twice. The Civic never moved. And the only reason anyone outside that parking lot ever knew the difference is that a 61-year-old man from a country ICE has never operated in decided, 3 years earlier, to spend $190 on a security system to protect his coin machines. That is the story of Elmer Rodriguez Salgado. And it is the story of every enforcement action that did not happen to occur in the frame of someone else's camera.